I never thought I would be writing something like this, but life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. My name is Mike, and I'm just an average guy, a husband and father of two. Jennifer, my wife, and I had what I thought was a solid marriage. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall, we were a team. At least, that's what I thought. Things started to change about 6 months ago. It was subtle at first. Jennifer was working late more often, claiming she had to meet with the teachers at our kids' school to discuss important matters. I tried to be supportive. After all, being involved in our children's education was important, right? But every time she came home late, I noticed something different. She seemed more distant, like she was somewhere else, both physically and mentally. Then came the phone calls. I'm not a snoop by nature, but I couldn't help but overhear her conversations. They were always hushed whispers, and she kept her phone close, almost like it was a lifeline. When I would ask her about her day, she would brush me off with vague answers. Oh, just the usual stuff. It didn't add up. One evening, I was helping my son Jake with his homework when I heard her on the phone again. This time, I could make out a few words. "I don't care what he thinks," she said, her tone almost defiant. "We just have to keep it on the down low for now." I felt a pit in my stomach. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was being paranoid, but deep down, I knew something was off. It all came to a head a few weeks later when I got a call from the school. The principal, Mr. Harris, wanted to speak with me about some concerns he had regarding Jake's progress. I went in, and as soon as I walked into the office, I felt the tension in the air. There was Jennifer looking all flustered, and Mr. Harris had a smile that felt too cocky for my liking. After the meeting, I casually asked Jennifer why she was there. She hesitated, then said she was just helping out. I couldn't shake the feeling that something more was going on. I decided to do a little digging. That night while she was in the shower, I took her phone and went through her texts. What I found was shocking. There were messages between her and Mr. Harris that were way too intimate for a principal and a parent. Words like "miss you" and "can't wait to see you again" jumped off the screen. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My heart raced and I could barely breathe. This was it. The evidence I needed to confront her. When she came out of the shower, I knew I had to confront her. I took a deep breath and asked her about Mr. Harris. Her face went pale and I could see the wheels turning in her head. She stammered out some excuse about how they were just friends and that I was overreacting, but I wasn't buying it. "I saw the texts, Jennifer," I said, my voice steady but my insides churning. The confrontation escalated quickly. She tried to play the victim, saying I was being unreasonable, that she wasn't cheating. She was just confiding in him about our marital problems. Her excuses were pathetic and I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I wanted to scream to let her know how betrayed I felt, but I kept my composure. The emotional impact hit me later that night. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, thinking about everything. The years we had spent together, the children we had raised, and now this. I felt a storm of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, all swirling around inside me. I had a decision to make. I could either pretend everything was fine and stay in a marriage built on betrayal, or I could take a stand and make her face the consequences of her actions. I chose the latter. I was going to expose her, and I would make sure Mr. Harris paid for what he had done. This was not just about me. It was about justice for our children and for myself. The thought of revenge fueled me, and I started to plan how I would execute my next steps. It was time to take control back, to show them both that I wouldn't be a doormat. I felt empowered for the first time in weeks. I was ready to take on whatever came next. The next few days passed in a blur of anger and confusion. I was still reeling from the confrontation, but I had a plan brewing in my mind. I couldn't let Jennifer off the hook easily, and just exposing her wouldn't be enough. I needed to hit them both where it hurt. Mr. Harris had to face consequences for what he'd done, and I was determined to make it happen. The first thing I did was gather evidence. I needed more than just the text messages to make a solid case. I started paying attention to every little detail: when Jennifer was out late, who she was with, and how often she was in contact with Mr. Harris. I began to document everything in a notebook, writing down dates, times and snippets of conversations I overheard. It felt like I was playing detective. I even went as far as to talk to other parents at the school who had dealings with Mr. Harris. The more I dug, the more I realized that he wasn't just some innocent principal. One parent, Lisa, mentioned how she had heard rumors about Mr. Harris getting too friendly with some of the mothers at the school. It seemed I wasn't the only one with concerns, and that fueled my resolve even more. I decided I was going to confront him, but first I needed to be strategic about it. I called a couple of close friends who supported me through this mess and shared my plan. They were shocked by my story but eager to help. My friend Tom, a lawyer, suggested I gather as much evidence as possible before approaching Mr. Harris. "You need to make sure you have all your ducks in a row," he advised. "You don't want him to wiggle out of this." That was the last thing I wanted, so I took his words to heart. In the following weeks, I watched as Jennifer continued her charade. She would leave the house with that same flirty smile, and it made my blood boil. Each time she walked out the door, I could only imagine the lies she was spinning to Mr. Harris. It was a sickening thought, but it also motivated me to persevere. One cold Saturday morning, I finally decided to act. I planned to confront Mr. Harris, but not without making sure I had witnesses. I arranged to meet him at a local coffee shop, one that was known for being busy and bustling. I secretly invited a couple of parents who had expressed their concerns about him. I wanted to show him that he wasn't just some authority figure who could shake off accusations. He was going to be held accountable. When I got there, I felt a surge of adrenaline rush through me. I could see Mr. Harris seated in a corner, reading a newspaper, looking completely oblivious to the storm that was about to hit him. As I approached, I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I greeted him with a tight smile, and he looked up, surprised to see me. "Mike, what a surprise. What brings you here?" he said, his voice dripping with insincerity. I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, Mr. Harris." He raised an eyebrow but motioned for me to sit down. I wasted no time. "I know about your affair with Jennifer." His expression shifted instantly, and I could see the realization hit him. "What are you talking about?" He stammered, but I pressed on, laying out everything I had: the texts, the late-night calls, the way she spoke about him. I didn't hold anything back, and with each revelation I could see his demeanor change from confident to panicked. As I spoke, I noticed a few parents nearby who were subtly listening. I caught Lisa's eye, and she nodded in support. It felt good to have backup. Mr. Harris tried to deflect, claiming I was being unreasonable, that Jennifer and I had been having issues, and that she was just a friend in a time of need. But I had come prepared. I pulled out my phone and showed him the messages, the proof of their emotional affair. "This isn't just a friendship. You crossed a line," I snapped. The parents around us were now fully engaged, and I could see the whispers start. Mr. Harris's face flushed with anger and embarrassment, and for a moment I felt a surge of satisfaction. I was taking control of the situation, and there was no escape for him. "You'll regret this, Mike," he hissed, his voice low and threatening. "You think you can just waltz in here and ruin my career?" I leaned in closer, my voice steady. "You ruined your own career the moment you decided to sleep with a parent. You think you can manipulate and take advantage of others without consequences. Not anymore." With that, I stood up, and the other parents began to murmur among themselves, clearly taking my side. I felt a wave of power wash over me. I knew this wasn't over, but I had started the process of exposing him. I walked out of the coffee shop, heart pounding but feeling a sense of vindication. Over the next few days, I gathered even more evidence and shared it with the other parents. We decided to confront the school board together. I knew I had to make sure they were aware of his behavior and that he couldn't hide behind his title anymore. The thought of justice fueled me. I was determined to see this through. As I prepared for the upcoming meeting with the school board, I couldn't shake off the feeling of empowerment. I was taking a stand for myself and for all the parents who had been hurt by Mr. Harris's actions. This was just the beginning, and I was ready for the fight ahead. The meeting with the school board was set for the following Thursday, and I spent the days leading up to it in a frenzy of preparation. I gathered all the evidence I had collected: text messages, witness statements from other parents, even accounts of Mr. Harris's questionable behavior at school events. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. This was my moment to ensure that he faced the consequences of his actions. I also had to prepare for Jennifer's reaction. I knew she would eventually find out what I was doing, and part of me braced for the storm. Would she defend him? Would she lash out at me? I didn't care anymore. I was done playing the victim in this situation. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. I could see a few other parents trickling in, and I felt a sense of camaraderie with them. We were all there for the same reason: to protect our children and hold Mr. Harris accountable. The atmosphere was tense, and I could feel the weight of what was about to unfold. As the meeting began, I took a deep breath and prepared to speak. The board members, a mix of stern-looking adults, sat at a long table, ready to hear the complaints. I stood up, my heart racing, and introduced myself. I could feel the eyes of the parents on me, and I pressed on. I'm here to address serious concerns regarding Principal Harris and his inappropriate relationship with my wife, Jennifer, I stated firmly. I made eye contact with each board member, ensuring that they understood the gravity of the situation. I have documentation and witness statements that show he has crossed professional boundaries, and I believe this puts our children at risk. I could see a few board members exchange uneasy glances. I continued, detailing the evidence I had gathered and the testimonies from other parents who had their own encounters with Mr. Harris. The atmosphere shifted from curiosity to discomfort. This wasn't just my word against his anymore. There was a collective concern in the room. When I mentioned the text messages, I shared snippets aloud, watching as the board members leaned in closer. This is not just an isolated incident. It reflects a pattern of behavior that is unacceptable for someone in his position. My voice was steady, even though my insides were churning. After presenting my case, I sat down, letting the weight of my words hang in the air. The board president, an older woman named Mrs. Thompson, nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mike. We take these allegations very seriously, and we will be conducting a thorough investigation." As the meeting continued and more parents spoke up, I felt a sense of unity growing among us. We were all invested in our children's safety, and it felt good to be standing up for what was right. I could see that even the board members were beginning to take the situation more seriously. After the meeting adjourned, I was approached by several parents who expressed their support. "Thank you for speaking up," one mother said, her voice filled with gratitude. "We need more parents like you." Their words meant a lot to me, and I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. But I still had to face Jennifer. I knew she would be furious when she found out what I had done. It was only a matter of time before she heard about the meeting. My accusations against Mr. Harris. I braced myself for the confrontation that was sure to follow. When I got home that evening, I found Jennifer pacing the living room, her expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "I can't believe you did this," she shouted, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "You had no right. You're ruining everything." I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "You think I wanted to do this? You brought this upon yourself when you decided to have an affair with him. You think I'd just sit back and let it happen?" Her face contorted in anger. "I wasn't having an affair. You don't understand what was going on." "Then explain it to me," I shot back, "because it sure as hell looks like cheating to me." She hesitated, her bravado faltering. "It wasn't what you think. We were just talking about our problems. I was confused. You weren't there for me." My heart sank at her words. How could she twist the narrative? "Confused? You betrayed me, Jennifer. You betrayed our family." For a moment we stood there, neither of us willing to back down. The tension was palpable, and I could see her resolve begin to weaken. But instead of conceding, she lashed out. "You're making a huge mistake, Mike. This will come back to bite you. You'll regret this." I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. Here was the woman I had loved, reduced to blaming me for her choices. "I'm not the one who needs to be worried about repercussions, Jennifer. You've made your bed, and now you have to lie in it." As the argument escalated, I realized how far gone our relationship was. This wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the trust that had been shattered beyond repair. I knew deep down that I couldn't continue living like this. I had to prioritize my own well-being and that of our children. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. A storm of emotions raged within me: anger, betrayal, sadness. But I also felt a newfound sense of resolve. I was no longer going to let her dictate my feelings or my actions. I was ready to move forward, whatever that entailed. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the road ahead. I didn't know what the future held for us, but I was prepared to face it head on. Justice was coming for Mr. Harris, and I was determined to ensure it didn't end there. No one was going to get away with this, not while I still had a voice. As the days wore on, the tension in our home became almost unbearable. The aftermath of the school board meeting hung heavily between Jennifer and me. She was angry and defensive, while I was resolute and driven. I knew that I was on a path to end this chapter of my life, but I wasn't sure how to navigate the chaos that lay ahead. The investigation into Mr. Harris's behavior began, and I was oddly comforted by the thought that others were standing up alongside me. Parents began to step forward, sharing their own experiences and concerns about his conduct. The momentum of our collective voices began to grow, and I felt a sense of power in being part of a community that refused to be silenced. Meanwhile, Jennifer continued to insist that her relationship with Mr. Harris was innocuous, that I was misunderstanding everything. I could see the guilt etched across her face during our conversations, yet she refused to take responsibility for her actions. It was infuriating. I found myself at a crossroads. Did I want to continue this fight, or was it time to cut my losses and focus on rebuilding my life without her? One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I decided to sit down with Jennifer to have what I hoped would be a sincere conversation. "Can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "What's left to talk about, Mike? You've made your point. I just want to understand what you were thinking," I replied, struggling to keep my composure. "What led you to think that it was okay to pursue someone like Mr. Harris?" Jennifer let out a deep sigh, her defensive posture relaxing slightly. "I felt alone, Mike. You were so wrapped up in your own world, working all those hours, that I felt like I had no one to turn to. I thought it was just harmless flirting, but it got out of control." "Harmless flirting?" I shook my head in disbelief. "You do understand how that sounds, do you? You put our marriage, our family, at risk for what? A few moments of attention." Her eyes filled with tears, and for a brief moment I saw the remorse flicker behind her facade. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was just so lost. I thought I could find someone who understood me." I felt a wave of pity wash over me, but I quickly pushed it aside. "And what about me? What did you think I would feel when I found out?" I paused, searching her eyes. "Did you even consider how this would impact our children?" She flinched, and I could tell that my words were hitting home. "I did. I thought I could fix things without it coming to this. I never wanted to hurt you." At that moment, I knew we were standing on the edge of a precipice. I could either choose to forgive and attempt to rebuild, or I could take the leap into an uncertain future. The truth was, I didn't know if I could ever truly trust her again. The following week, the school board summoned Mr. Harris for a hearing regarding the allegations against him. I knew I had to be there to witness the outcome of my efforts, but I was also anxious about what repercussions this might have on my family. Would he retaliate? What might he say about me or Jennifer? As the day approached, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I arrived early at the school, finding a seat in the crowded auditorium where the hearing was taking place. Parents filled the rows, their expressions ranging from concern to curiosity. I could see Lisa sitting a few rows in front of me, and she gave me a reassuring nod. When Mr. Harris arrived, he walked in with an air of arrogance, as if he couldn't believe he was being scrutinized. I felt a surge of anger seeing him so confident after what he had done. But I was ready to confront him again. This time, I wouldn't back down. The hearing began, and one by one, parents spoke out against him, sharing their experiences and concerns. I could feel the weight of the testimonies building a case against him, and it gave me a sense of validation. I watched as he squirmed in his seat, the cocky exterior cracking just a bit more with each passing minute. Finally, it was my turn to speak. I stood up, the adrenaline surging through me. I'm here to address not just the allegations against Mr. Harris, but to stand up for the integrity of our school community. He abused his position of power and betrayed the trust of not only my wife, but of many parents who looked to him as a leader. My voice was steady as I recounted the evidence I had gathered, making sure to emphasize how his actions had affected our children. I caught a glimpse of Jennifer in the audience, her gaze locked on me with a mixture of anger and shame. I felt empowered, knowing I was fighting not just for myself, but for everyone who had been hurt by Mr. Harris's behavior. As I finished, I looked right at him. You may think you can hide behind your title, but your actions have consequences, and we will not be silent. The room erupted in applause, and I felt a wave of support wash over me. After the hearing, it was clear that Mr. Harris's position was jeopardy. The board members would be reviewing the evidence and deciding his fate, but the feeling of solidarity among the parents was palpable. I had done my part to bring the truth to light, and I left feeling a sense of accomplishment. But as I walked out, I was hit with the reality of my own situation. I still had to face Jennifer, who was waiting for me outside. As soon as we were alone, the tension crackled in the air. "I can't believe you would do this to me," she said, her voice low and furious. "You made me look like a fool." "Jennifer," I replied, trying to keep my frustration in check, "you did that all on your own. You made choices that hurt our family, and I'm just trying to protect our kids." She glared at me, and I could see the anger boiling beneath the surface. "You think you're some kind of hero. You're just making things worse." I took a deep breath, realizing how far apart we had drifted. "No, I'm trying to reclaim what's rightfully ours. I won't let you or him jeopardize our family any longer." Her eyes softened for a brief moment, but then the wall came back up. "You're being dramatic. You don't understand what it's like to feel alone." I shook my head, frustration bubbling over. "Maybe if you had communicated instead of cheating, we wouldn't be here. I'm done playing this game, Jennifer." That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. I had taken steps to confront the situation head-on, but I was also painfully aware that the fight was far from over. The school board's decision loomed, and I still had to navigate the wreckage of my marriage. I realized that I couldn't keep holding onto the past. Whether Jennifer and I could salvage anything would depend on her willingness to take responsibility for her actions. As I closed my eyes, I made a silent promise to myself. No matter what happened next, I would prioritize my own healing and the well-being of my kids. Justice was coming for Mr. Harris, but it was time for me to start my own journey toward healing. The day of the school board's decision arrived, and I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. The news had spread among parents, and many expected an announcement about Mr. Harris's future. The tension was palpable as I sat in the auditorium, surrounded by concerned parents, all eager to see justice served for the betrayal we had experienced. As the meeting commenced and the board members took their seats, I could feel my heart racing. Mr. Harris was called in to address the board, and I watched as he walked in, his demeanor a far cry from the cockiness he had displayed before. Now he seemed more subdued, perhaps recognizing that the tide had turned against him. The board president, Mrs. Thompson, cleared her throat and initiated the discussion. "Today, we gather to address the allegations against Principal Harris and the impact of his actions on our school community." She glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of the concerned parents. "We take these matters seriously, as the trust and safety of our students must always come first." As the parents who had spoken out previously shared their testimonies again, I felt a sense of solidarity. Their words echoed my own feelings of betrayal, and I could see that the board members were taking notes, visibly engaged in the unfolding narrative. I knew that the more we shared, the more difficult it would be for Mr. Harris to defend himself. Finally, it was my turn again. I stood up, feeling the weight of the room on my shoulders. "I'd like to emphasize that Mr. Harris's actions have caused deep harm to our community. Not only did he betray my wife's trust, but he also put our children in a vulnerable position by abusing his authority." My voice was steady, and I could see parents nodding along with my words. After I spoke, Mrs. Thompson turned to Mr. Harris. Do you have any statements you would like to make in light of these accusations? He stood up, his voice shaky. I deeply regret any misunderstandings. I want to clarify that my interactions with parents were intended to be supportive. I never meant to cross any boundaries. There was a collective eye roll among the parents. I felt my blood boil. Misunderstandings. This wasn't a misunderstanding, Mr. Harris. This was a calculated betrayal. I shot back, my voice rising. You used your position to exploit vulnerable people. You should be ashamed. The board members exchanged glances, clearly contemplating the weight of our testimonies against his defense. The tension in the room was thick, and I held my breath, hoping they would see through his flimsy excuses. After much deliberation, Mrs. Thompson finally announced, "We have reviewed the evidence and testimonies presented. It is clear that Principal Harris has violated the trust placed in him by both parents and students." I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was the moment we had all been waiting for. In light of these violations, the board has decided to terminate Mr. Harris's employment effective immediately. The room erupted into applause, cheers ringing out from parents who had fought for this moment. I felt a surge of victory wash over me, knowing that we had taken a stand and that consequences were finally in place. As parents celebrated, I felt a mix of elation and exhaustion. The fight was not just about Mr. Harris. It was about reclaiming our power as a community and making sure our children were safe. But even amid the victory, I knew the aftermath of my own relationship with Jennifer was still looming. Returning home that evening, I was met with an awkward silence. Jennifer was sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, a familiar look of defiance on her face. "You really think you accomplished something today?" she asked, her tone dripping with disdain. I couldn't help but feel frustrated. "Jennifer, he was abusing his power and now he's gone. This is about protecting our kids." "Oh, so now you're the hero," she shot back. "What about our family? You've made everything worse, Mike." I felt a wave of anger rise within me. Worse? You think that's worse than what you did? You had an affair. You need to face the reality of your choices. She stood up, pacing the room. "You don't get it. You think this is all about me being the bad guy, but you don't see the whole picture. I was lonely. I needed support and you weren't there for me." "Lonely? You chose to betray me. You didn't even communicate with me." My frustration boiled over. "You took the easy way out instead of working on our marriage." The conversation spiraled, and we traded accusations, but deep down, I knew this was more than just anger. It was a reflection of our broken relationship. I was tired of the blame game, tired of fighting over who was right or wrong. After a long silence, I finally said, "I can't keep doing this, Jennifer. This isn't healthy for our family. We need to figure out if we can even salvage this marriage or if it's time to go our separate ways." Her expression softened, and for the first time I saw a glimpse of vulnerability. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice quieter. "I mean that we need to be honest with ourselves. Can we get past this? Can you take responsibility for your actions? Or do we need to consider separating?" The question hung heavily in the air, and I could see the realization dawning on her. For the first time, we were confronting the truth of our situation beyond the anger and blame. It was terrifying, but it was also a necessary step. As I lay in bed that night, I wrestled with the uncertainty of our future. I had taken steps toward justice for our children and our community, but when it came to my marriage, the path was far less clear. I knew that whatever decision we reached would define the course of our lives moving forward, and I was ready to face it. In that moment, I realized that true justice wasn't just about punishing the wrongdoer. It was also about healing and finding clarity. I was determined to seek that path, no matter where it led. The following days after the school board meeting were a whirlwind of emotions. I was still processing the victory of seeing Mr. Harris removed from his position, but the uncertainty regarding my marriage with Jennifer weighed heavily on my mind. We had reached a crossroads, and it was time to confront the reality of our situation. We finally sat down for a serious conversation that had been long overdue. I could see the apprehension in her eyes, but I also sensed a glimmer of understanding. "We need to talk about where we go from here," I said, taking a deep breath to steady myself. "Our relationship can't continue under these circumstances." Jennifer nodded, her expression serious. I know I messed up, Mike. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I never wanted to hurt you or the kids, but I got lost in my own feelings. I don't want to lose you, but I understand if you feel differently. I could feel the weight of her words, and I wanted to believe that she was sincere. It's going to take more than just words to fix this, Jennifer. I need to know that you're willing to take responsibility for your actions and work on yourself. I can't be in a relationship where I don't feel trusted or respected. I am willing to do the work, she insisted, her eyes pleading. I want to go to counseling together. I want to find a way to rebuild what we had. The thought of couples counseling sparked a flicker of hope within me. Maybe this was a step in the right direction. I think that could help, but it's not just about fixing our marriage. We also have to be honest about whether we can truly move forward together, I replied, wanting to lay out the raw truth. I understand, she murmured, visibly shaken. I've been so selfish, and I see that now. I want to change for you and for our kids. As we talked, it felt like a small door had opened. A possibility of healing was on the horizon. I wanted to believe that we could find a way to navigate the pain and betrayal, but I also knew that it wouldn't happen overnight. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. That night, we made a pact to attend counseling together. I felt a mix of apprehension and cautious optimism. I had taken action to seek justice for what had happened, but now it was time to focus on healing our family. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to try if she was committed to the journey as well. In the weeks that followed, we began attending therapy sessions. It was a challenging process, but I could see that Jennifer was genuinely trying to understand her actions. We explored the root of her feelings of loneliness and dissatisfaction, and slowly she began to open up about her struggles. As we shared our feelings in a safe environment, I found myself remembering the love that had once brought us together. With each session, we peeled back layers of hurt and anger, replacing them with honesty and vulnerability. It was a journey of rediscovery, not just of each other, but of ourselves. The kids noticed the change too. As we worked through our issues, I could feel the tension easing in our home. We were more present, more engaged, and more connected as a family. I realized that while the path to healing was long, it also brought us closer than we had been in years. Eventually, we reached a point where we could talk about the affair without the immediate sting of pain. Jennifer began to understand the true impact of her choices, and I could see her remorse was genuine. It was a long process, but we were both committed to making our marriage work and ensuring that our kids felt secure and loved. As I reflected on the entire experience, I recognized that the journey had taught me invaluable lessons about trust, communication, and resilience. I learned that justice isn't just about retribution. It's also about seeking truth and fostering an environment where honesty prevails. I had taken a stand against betrayal, not just for myself but for our family. And as I watched Jennifer work to rebuild that trust, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We were forging a new path together, one marked by accountability and understanding. In the end, I realized that while life might throw unexpected challenges our way, it's how we respond that defines us. I became more aware of my own strength and the importance of fighting for what matters. My family was worth the effort, and I was determined to protect and nurture it as we moved forward together. We had come through the darkness, and while the scars of betrayal would remain, they served as reminders of our resilience. Together, we were crafting a new narrative, one of healing, growth, and renewed commitment to each other. And perhaps, just perhaps, our love could emerge stronger than before.